So it's 2 minutes after 10. We'll go ahead and get started. And then if people come in a little late, hopefully we can get them caught up. This startup screen just kind of gives you some ideas about how to make sure that the process of the webinar runs fairly smoothly. Unfortunately, because we don't know people's different bandwidths and all, because everybody's working from their own remote locations. So we turned off the chat, the mic function, and the video function because that just takes more energy, I guess, from for lack of a better term, from our internet services. And then also make sure you can adjust your speaker setting right there on your desktop, and access that if you need to turn it up or turn it down, whichever happens. There'll be we'll have lots of opportunity for questions, and we'll be answering those questions and all throughout. So feel free to, in that chat bar, go ahead and open that up and list your questions there, and either Christy and I will catch those as we go through at the point that we are in the webinar, and then we'll also save time at the end to address any other questions that might have come up as we've gone through, and will be available after the webinar is over. We've intended this to take about 20 to 30 minutes. So and it's just an overview. It's not, a full training, but we'll show you some places where you can go and extend your skills in the platform and with the curriculum as we go ahead. So it's now a couple minutes past, so we'll go ahead and get started. So this is just the refresher course for our HMH Ed platform is what we're going to be looking at. And our goals for a webinar, because it's really kind of awkward to just be presenting and not have that feedback, are going to be pretty short, pretty simple kinds of goals, I guess, for our course today. So we're going to look at that concept of access. How do we get there? Different people are accessing information in different formats. A lot of people might be using Schoology, and some people are using the platform more. So it's just a way to give a refresher on that. And then we're going to show you how to find curriculum resources, a couple of different ways on the platform, and how to assign content through there. And then lastly, we'll show you what we've been working on our Schoology site if you haven't visited that. And that's a kind of an ongoing activity that we're working on. So that's going to be changing kind of on a daily basis, especially for the next week or so. And then lastly, we'll address that issue of attendance so that you get whatever credit is needed for you. I don't know how exactly that's working right now, but we do have an attendance format for that. So let me check the chat screen here and make sure. You cannot hear. Jason cannot hear. Okay, thanks, Christy. I'm going to monitor participants if you'll keep monitoring the chat.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, so here we go. And I don't know if you're if you're looking at two screens, perhaps. I know some people are, to be able to run through things as they are watching the webinar. But like I say, we're getting this recorded in a couple of different ways, so we'll have that recording available for you. So we are going to go to the staff applications page, either at the district level or at your site level. Either of those district applications pages will work, and you're looking for that Ed button about 10 or 12 spaces down, and that's what you're going to select. Our program is a single sign-on program, which means that we enter our vendor's platform, the Ed platform, through Modesto City Schools. Our students are all pre-populated there. Our classes are pre-populated there, so that's where we live. So there's not a way to get into it outside unless you want to use the demo account, unless you're practicing with the demo account, which would be an outside login. But if you're accessing it with your students, you're going to have to go through the single sign-on process on the through the staff applications page to get there. And then once you've selected that, you're going to come to a screen that's going to look something like this. And there are a couple of things I want to point out on the screen. Starting with up here in the middle, where you're going to see it says class 25. That's where your classes are going to live. Remember, your students are all pre-populated based on how they're enrolled in their courses. It's a nightly upload between Power School and our vendor. So that's how students populate those classes. So that's where you're going to find it. You're going to use that drop-down menu to go to whichever class that you're looking at, whether it's first period or fifth period or whatever the case is. The other thing that you should be aware of on this dashboard screen at this point is the other circle I've got there at the top, the Ed circle with the, the cute little guy with the 3 hairs on his head and the happy face. Anytime you get lost on the platform, all you need to do is to go take your cursor and select Ed, and once you click it, it'll take you back to this launch screen. So something to kind of keep in mind. We'll be talking about a few other features of this as we go forward. So if we're taking a look at what things are on this, items are on this launch screen. Where's my, okay, so we've got the banners at the top. That top banner, I said, that Ed, our vendor said when they were doing training last summer, anytime you want to get back to this page, you just punch Ed in the face. Take your cursor and select Ed. As I mentioned, we've got then the class option, just that drop-down menu in the middle. So that drop-down menu is how I'm going to get to my different classes. Also, once you log in, and no, my name, I haven't changed my name to Alfred today, but once you log in, your name should be there. And there are several other features that we'll talk about as we move forward underneath the drop-down menu by that welcome sign for you. The second banner are the tools that you can use for different functions on the platform. The discovery tool is where you're going to find resources. The create tool is where you can make assessments and plans. So if you want to have resources that you're going to use later, you might want to create a plan or a unit plan for that. And you can put things, you can populate things there. The assignments link or the assignments box is where you're going to be able to see what you have assigned to students, and you will also be able to assess anything that's done digitally on the platform there. Data and reports, pretty much self-explanatory, looking at, in particular, it's really just assessments that you're going to find there. And then groups. So if you've got students that you need to have grouped a little bit differently, if you've got your, say your special ed students, and you want to put those students into a group, so you can assign things specifically to them, that might be a way to do that. So let's see, next, the program. So we're looking at just American history, Reconstruction to the Present, the California edition. That's our text. That's the only text that we use on this platform, so it shouldn't be anything different there. The modules, those are your chapters, and you've seen that either if you're using physical text or the PDFs or the platform, it's identified exactly the same, and then within those modules are the sections. And then lastly, at the bottom of the page, you're going to find all kinds of other resources. So this would be like the box of ancillary books that you would get in a earlier adoption. This is where you're going to find all of these things. Most everything here is either PDF, or it could be video, or it could be a link. So at the very bottom, you'll see the featured sites. Featured sites are links to and outside of the platform. So to current events or other issues. The professional learning, those are largely videos or walk through kind of tutorials, so they link you in that way. But a lot of the other resources there are PDFs. So if you're the question that came up yesterday with impact, with rolling things out to students on Schoology, you're going to want to use the PDFs or maybe Word documents, or if you're using Google a little more extensively, maybe that's something you roll into Google and upload from there. But these are some of the resources, and oftentimes you can find resources both in the module as well as in the resource list here below. So we're going to go over some of those as we move forward. Okay, good. I'm glad Jason can hear now. We'll have it in the recording, Jason, so you can catch up. Okay, so choosing and assigning content. There are 3 locations that you can choose and assign content from. So the first is going to be, we'll look at the modules, how you can do that, how you can choose and assign content through the modules. The second is through the little search tool there at the top that's circled. And then the third is through the resources. So let's start by taking a look at the modules and what that looks like. So I'm going to use this module 14 Arrow Social Change because I figure, especially as we look forward, starting with April 13th, where we can roll out any kinds of new content, that's might be an area where people are somewhere in there, that Cold War 1960s kind of area. And so if I want to take a look at the resources that are available in that module, all I have to do is select it, and then it's going to come up with lessons that are included in that module. And so those are kind of like the chapter sections. They're calling them lessons here. So we've got this issue of Kennedy and the New Frontier and Johnson and the Great Society. If I select one of those, it's going to give me just the pieces that are part of that lesson. So in Johnson and the Great Society, I've got some options when I select those that section of the curriculum. I can open it, and it's going to open anything that opens. You can see the little icon there. It will open in another tab. So just so you know, if you open a number of things, you're going to end up with a string of tabs across the top of your browser bar, just as a reminder. I can add it to a plan. If I'm creating a plan, I've created a plan, I can add it to that plan. So maybe I've got my 1960s plan, and I want to make sure that this section is definitely something that I'm assigning to students. I can add it to my plan there, or I can assign it directly to the students. And so they're going to see that as an assignment. Hey, I've got to read this section 2 of Johnson and the Great Society from the e-text. So that's how I would assign in that location. So let's take a look then at choosing and selecting through the search tool, because that's another way that we can search and choose. So if I select that little magnifying glass up in the top, the search tool, I can actually just type in whatever kinds of keywords I'm looking for. So if I'm looking at civil rights, I can type that in, but you see it's going to give me civil rights pieces from throughout all of the curriculum. So, this prologue, the American Beginnings, that's probably talking about, maybe the Bill of Rights, that issue of civil rights that was created there, or maybe the complications with the colonies, or it could be the Reconstruction amendments. It's a lot of things. So I'm going to want to make that more specific. So if there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can type a more specific keyword into that search bar, or I can use the filters that are there on the side. So you see where it says filters, audience, component, instructional purpose, and format. So the audience is this, am I doing this for either the teacher or the student? Well, as we're teachers, we're probably looking for things likely for students, especially as we look at this distance learning to push out. And then what kind of a component am I looking for? Am I looking for, assessments? Am I looking for document-based investigations? That's one of the activities that the HMH product, provides, are these DBIs, which are pretty short primary source pieces. A lot of visuals that are included in that, and if they've got a chunk of text, it's really very, very brief. So those are things that you could use that I think are even shorter than our DBQ chunks of text, or SHEG chunks of text if you've used those. There are the graphic organizers there. All those kinds of things. If it's something very specific, a component that I'm looking for, I can select that, and that's going to refine my choices here. The other filters down below is, what's my purpose? Am I looking for the answer key? Am I looking for enrichment? Am I looking for some reading support or some reference pieces? Am I looking for primary sources? And then the format, is it digital? Is it the ebook? Is it something that I can edit? Is it something interactive? If it's interactive, it's, students are going to have to be on the platform. So one of the things that we neglected to tell yesterday's group, but we'll reinforce it with tomorrow's group, is that especially in this distance learning, one of the things that we need to really be cognizant of is, how are our students accessing information? What kind of Wi-Fi do they have if we're doing it in that fashion? I know that the memorandum of understanding between the union and the district is that if print materials need to be provided, that the district has a responsibility to provide the means for printing them. So I'm not sure what that process is going to be for getting that information to parents or students, but we need to be aware of how our students are going to be accessing. So if we do a lot of interactive things that require them to be on the platform, that might be a problem for some of our kiddos. The other thing I wanted to say about this, and I was thinking about last night, is the best opportunity that we have to support students who might learn differently. I'm talking about our resource kids, students in special ed, just students who maybe think a little bit differently. There's automatic differentiation built into the online pieces that's a little bit more difficult to provide the differentiation for in some of the print resources, because we're not there, to help them in more of a one-on-one capacity. I know that, some of you are probably thinking about how you're going to offer those office hours that was mentioned in Dr. Noguchi's email earlier, but there you go. It's just some things to kind of think about that I was thinking about last night. Keith has a question here for those who use Schoology and HMH platform. If you had to choose one, which would you choose? Which is more student friendly? Well, one of the things I would say, and then you can entertain the conversation. You see who's on the list. Feel free, Keith, to engage in that conversation, by email and talking to other people. But what have you used in your classroom? I think because it's maybe this move to distance learning almost exclusively is going to be a real challenge for kids. What have you used mostly? If you've been using mostly Schoology this year, my suggestion, I think, would just be to, maybe stick with that, and, maybe dip your toes in some interactive pieces that are available on the platform. But if you've been using the platform with the students, then obviously, stick to that and maybe get their toes wet with Schoology. Whatever, in terms of that concept of being friendly, whatever's comfortable has a tendency to be more friendly. So whichever platform you've been playing in your classroom, I would say stick to that as your primary access piece. So like I said, you see who's in our chat. Maybe reach out to some others. And if anybody has any other kind of advice, we'll definitely have some time to keep the chat running. at the end. And maybe you can reach out to Keith with any of your ideas too. So, okay, so we have all of these different filters to help filter this. Another way you can filter, like I said, is just by, okay, I'm thinking about the Civil Rights Act. So if I add just that other key word in there, well, it very much limits. Okay, here's the Homestead Act of 1862. Probably not what I'm looking for the 1960s. Same with the Civil Rights Act of 1866. That's definitely Reconstruction. I might want to use some of that because Reconstruction definitely is the precursor to what's going on with civil rights issues of the 1960s. But what I'm really looking for is that Civil Rights Act of 1964. So I can open and take a look at it. My suggestion is, I think definitely if you're not familiar with these resources, definitely look at them before you assign them out. But if I know what it looks like and say, yep, that's the one I was looking for, I can assign it right to there. I can add it to my plan. Once I open it up, here's the other thing. Once I open it up, this is from the primary source database. These are all PDF items. And so I can download it from there. I can manipulate it. And I'm going to show you what it kind of looks like here in a moment. And I can push it out to students on my Schoology page or in print form or whatever the case is. So let's take a look at that. So if I pull up that Civil Rights Act of 1964, the first thing that you're going to notice is that it's not really clipped like you would find as a primary source might be in the textbook, or like I said, for those of you who have used the Stanford History Education Group, the SHEG materials, they're very much clipped. This one is 6 pages long. It does give a reading focus at the top, which is really important for students in their reading activity. It provides the context, the background up at the top, which is great. But it's 6 pages, and I don't know how persistent your students are. I know how persistent mine were. That might be a little much. Additionally, at the end, there are some analysis questions for the text that you could assign to students, ask them to do. But one of the issues with these PDFs is they also have the answers embedded right there at the bottom. So if you are going to be just pushing this out, like I said, make sure that you open it up and see what is actually involved there. You might want to clip this, change the analysis questions, make sure you keep the context at the top. You've got a source right here. So those kinds of really good things are on there. I'll show you what we've done, what we've provided, at least up to this point, on the Schoology page that might help you with some of these things, and we'll be continuing to populate there as well. But just something to think about. Anything I missed with that, Christy?
No, I think you covered that portion really well. Thank you.
Okay. So once you've assigned something, and this is going to be anything that's interactive, anything that can be submitted on the platform, like an assessment. They're not going to be submitting if you assign a reading portion, one of the modules, it's not going to come up as students have completed it, because just because they've opened it doesn't mean it's completed. There's no real way, just like if we assign any type of reading to students. But anything that can be submitted back to you will show that how many people have accessed it, how many are in process of completing it. If anything is ready to grade is in that next column, and that what's completed. So what's been completed there. So you can see that that first assignment, the online module assessment, has not yet been started. So somebody's pushing it out, but there's the student ebook. So it's not going to register if students have completed that reading or not. That's the same thing as if we assign any other type of reading. But when an interactive assignment has been submitted back, it's going to tell you that it's ready to grade. And then all you have to do is click on the ready to grade items. And it's going to pull up your class roster. This is just a demo roster here. I don't have a class worth of students to utilize this with. but it's going to pull up your class roster, and then in the status, it's going to show you which ones are ready to grade. So I can see that this first one, this World 10, student number 10, completed the assignment, and that feedback has been given to them, so that there's some information going on there. But this one, World student number 2, their assignment is ready to grade. So all I have to do is click on that, and then I get to see the kind of response. So the student obviously did not put a whole lot of effort into this activity here on this written response. And I've got the grading criteria here, the rubric that's associated with this assignment that I can grade that assignment right there. So that's how it is. Now, with any of our platforms, for those of you who don't just teach world history, but you're teaching another, US history, but you might teach world or government or econ, the vendor platforms that we are using at this time do not sync with our PowerSchool or our or Schoology. So any grades that you create here, you can do one of two things. You can export them and then upload them to, say, your Schoology gradebook or PowerSchool, or just enter them by hand, whichever way is easier. It just depends on what you're used to. So, any questions about finding or assigning resources? I mean, they really put those nice little buttons there that are pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Like I said, we'll have time for questions at the end as well. But for those who might need a little more walkthrough or training resources, there's really a couple. There at the bottom of the resources list is a professional learning file. So that's a great place. There are some videos in there. As you enter that, and I'm trying to remember, I don't think I put a screenshot in here, but as you enter it, it's going to kind of take you from starting at the beginning, kind of the welcome. There is a little hamburger menu in the upper left-hand corner that has like a table of contents. So you can kind of you can set those, pick the pieces that you need to go through, or you can just go through them in order. And there are other training resources, professional resources available there. The second place you can go to for some training resources is the help section. And so you notice, remember I told you at the beginning that welcome and whatever your name is there. For today, I'm Alfred. So here in Alfred's menu, you can look at his rosters, manages programs. You can take a look at any kind of updates that the program has made. But the help menu is going to get you to a section that also lists different types of training resources so that you can hone some of the skills in dealing with the platform and the curriculum. So those are two places. And then obviously, I didn't put this up in number 3. If you've got a question, feel free to reach out to Christy or I. That's what we're here for, and especially now, that's happy to work with you. We can even set up a kind of a one-on-one training if you need to. That's totally doable. So I've got a couple of questions over here I want to make sure and respond to. Is there any particular one that you recommend in the professional learning? It seems like during adoption, there are a couple of different things. Robin, thank you for that question. They do have videos, and then they also have kind of some kind of walkthrough sheets. So it just depends on obviously what information that you're looking for, and then what is what you work with better. I mean, there's sometimes I don't want to follow necessarily the video tutorial. Just give me the sheet so I know this first part and I can jump to the next part. So it's something that you're going to have to take a look at and say, this works best for me. So, but once again, if you are struggling with that, yeah, definitely reach out. We'll walk through it together. And then Brian's question said the only challenge that he's had is with the ebook is the lack of page numbers. Yeah, the PDF version has page numbers, and the ebooks, and this is once again, this is for both our impact resources as well as the HMH resources. The online version is done in a web format that is that works with, that the parameters of, I don't know, whatever it is that HTML. I don't know. I'm sorry, that's not my area of expertise, but they lay it out. So the entire section is essentially one web page, and you scroll to the end of that page. They can't do that in a textbook. So that's why they have the pagination and the page numbers. So once again, we'll go back. That's very close to even what Keith's question was in terms of how you use it. If you've largely been using the PDF version or the physical version in your classroom with your students, maybe you're going to want to stick with the PDF version. So on in the resources, you see the student edition PDF is right there. But remember, those PDF pages are also, Christy and I uploaded those at the beginning of the year onto the Schoology site. And we'll go there in a moment. So you can, once again, pick whatever's comfortable for your kids. Let's not, I don't suppose we need to confuse either ourselves or our students any more than where we already are in this quarantine mode. So yeah, it's not that you're not using the ebook correctly. It's just modified or created to fit into a web version. And so it's just that one whole page and everything is embedded. And once again, it's what are you used to? What are your kids used to? Let's reduce the number of conflicts, I guess, in our cognitive conflicts during this time period. And either way, now that being said, if they are in the interactive version, once again, you are going to have access to some of those differentiation pieces. Google Translate will translate the text for you. You're going to have the graphic organizers to organize information embedded in the online version.
You'll have the videos.
The questions, right at point of use for students, not the ones that you're going to find at the end of the section, but the ones for checking for understanding at each, different points. Mapping activities, those sorts of things. So a lot of that differentiation is going to be in the web version. But if your kids are used to that paginated PDF version, the paginated, physical text or PDF version, then maybe, you just keep them working there and occasionally roll out something a little more interactive and move towards that. Your students better than we do. So anyways, but we're here to help you as you want to work with these things. So please let us know.
These are great questions. Are there any other ones that you have? And again, sometimes as we're going through this and learning a little bit more about the platform and Schoology, some of these things, we don't know what we don't know. So as we're kind of rolling these things out over the next couple weeks and more questions do arise again, as Janine said, we're definitely here to help you in any way. Another question that came up by Keith, will there be additional material posted to the Schoology group page per the MOU? So that's
a great question. Mm-hmm. We'll go through what you can find there at this point, and we'll let you know what we're working on. That's where we're at. So anything else? And well, like I said, let's answer that and come back. And Keith, if there's anything specific that you're looking for, we'll try and answer that at the end after we go through the Schoology page. How's that? Printed material. once again, we'll come back to that. Don't, hold me accountable. Bring that question back if I don't answer it at the end. How's that? Okay, so I know a lot of you are already on the Schoology Modesto City Schools Social Science 712 site. If you're not, we've got the group access code up there for you. So when you go to Schoology, if you're just working on a single screen right now, make sure and write down the group access code so that you can get on there. When I made a clip of this page, you can see we had 141 members at that point. This site was originally set up about 3 years ago or so as a repository, as a place where we can put resources as a group, because remember it's a group code, don't try and access it through courses. As a group, people can individually load things in there and to share with other members of the group. And then we just set it up. I set it up like a file cabinet. So if you are a junior high teacher, you can go to junior high and then go to 7th grade, and the resources that are specific to your course are in there. Same thing, high school, US history, the things that are specific to your course are in there. So when you go to high school and you go to US history, you're going to find in that folder some HMH materials. You're going to find the PDFs for the textbook. You're going to find things that are just specific for you. So that's how that how the folder looks. The one thing that we've added, the new folder that we've added, is the distance learning folder. And so in there, the group code to join, Michael, is right up there in the corner of this slide. And here, after you open up distance learning and then the high school folder and US history, here's what we have in here as of today. I did take the PBS influenza video. If you didn't use that in World War I, it's a pretty good video. It's an opportunity maybe to show some connection to current events with your students if you're, depending on what you might want to roll out. And especially in these first 2 weeks, if we're looking at doing some kinds of review or enrichment, this could be a piece that you could fairly easily roll out. There's a graphic organizer there too. Other people have worksheets if they want to share them. So that would be it, but it's embedded there. So you can just take that. There's an activity with it and push it out to your students if you'd like. That's how you can do that. So you just copy that resource, use that little gear at the end. You can copy the resource to your course or to your multiple courses or to your own resources. The other thing that we've put in there is we were looking for things that people could push out to students especially as review and enrichment pieces. And we'll be incorporating these in at least a 3-week plan as we start kind of moving out, taking a look at what the remainder of the year could possibly be in the event that we don't return to school. So in that DBI folder, which remember in our new textbook that stands for document-based investigation, there are several document-based investigations in there. And the amount of primary sources that are listed with these are pretty random, anywhere from maybe 3 to like 7 in that each of those DBIs. And then there's also in there a analyzing sources fillable that was created actually to address some other primary sources. But I opened it up and tried to make sure that you could utilize that. So there's a fillable in there that you could push out directly to students, but there's also a Word doc that you could download and manipulate and make it your own as you wish. Lastly, there's a historical thinking chart, and I took that from specifically from the SHAG website. And actually the analyzing sources worksheet I really utilized kind of their protocol with contextualizing and looking for corroboration and sourcing the material and that sort of thing. But the historical thinking chart I modified to take out what students should be able to do and just left it with what contextualization is and then some sentence stems. So if you were to push out this worksheet to students, I would push out that historical thinking chart because it really has some sentence stems for students to be answering some of the questions there. And those will be there. Also, anything in this, and I call it the crisis folder, right? The red distance learning folder. Anything in here will be populating also in the other files. So none of these things that we've created are going to go away. We're going to sock them into those folders in the event that you use them, that you like them, that we have another, kind of a crisis period. You've got kids on independent study. It'd be a great thing to easily go to as well. Lastly, these are PDFs, but the interactive versions live on the HMH Ed platform. So you might, depending on what kind of access your kids have, the interactive version is going to take up more bandwidth, but it might be, I don't know, they might like using that better. Once again, use what you're used to using. So we're going to be continuing to populate that. One of the things that we've been asked to do is basically kind of give you a 3-week kind of a timeline. One of the issues that we know happens with all of our courses is that people are in different places. So what we're going to be populating in there may or may not fit where you're at, but we're going to try and give you at least kind of a template. The way that I kind of think about, at least how I've taught, is provide students with some background and then give them some information to consider and then have them dig deeper and then have some sort of an assessment kind of a thing. And if we kind of follow a protocol like that for each week, you can roll out kind of some different topics. We want to keep things simple because even students who do have access, I don't think we can, we can't really demand that they're going to, it's not like them attending our class every day for 50 minutes and then, having an hour of homework or something like that. We can't expect that that's what's going to happen. So it'll definitely be in simplified fashion. So even as you start thinking about what you need your students to do between now and the end of the year, think about those big ticket items. What do you want them to not miss out on? What are some of the things that are, maybe even those things that we love, setting those aside, but what do we want them to not miss out on? What are those big issues they really need to understand? And so as Christy and I work on doing some plans for you all, that's what it'll be. And so we'll be putting those in this folder as well. As for the printed material, I think I answered Keith's question with the exception of the printed material. The MOU says that, the district will provide means for printing. So I don't know exactly what that might entail, except for, a printer and a copier. We're not in the office either. So I'm sorry, I don't have, and I don't think reprographics is going. So it's not like we could just send a file to reprographics. So that's something you're going to want to get a hold of I would say your site about how that printing and getting resources to students and parents, what that would look like, because that was not explained in either the MOU or Dr. Noguchi's email out to us. I think that's how I would direct you, Keith, with if you need anything printed for students. Sorry, I don't have a better answer. I'm getting the same emails that you all are getting too, so. Okay. So at this point, whoops, oh, back, sorry. At this point, we want to make sure that you have attendance in here. I'm going to type this web address in so that you can link it directly from our chat box.
And we have a question from Brian if we have a digital Dropbox for files at this time.
We're just using the Schoology site because that's something everybody's got access to. So everything that we create will be on the Schoology site. So that's our Dropbox. So if you could take a moment, and this registers your attendance in the webinar with that bit.ly survey. And the title of our session is HMH Refresher. Brian's got a question about for students to turn in work. If you push it out through either the platform or through Schoology, then that's going to go back to those sites. If you've got a different type of system for your students, obviously just keep using what you've been using. But anything on the platform, any interactive activities that you push out through the platform, it'll be recorded there. If it's something that you push out through Schoology, it'll be accessed there. My suggestion, Brian, if you've not done so, is to take there's a Schoology conference session. They have basically it'd be like holding class, where you could invite your entire class for a session and check in with them, see what kinds of things they might need. You could even deliver, a brief lecture, a discussion in that format. So if you've not done the Schoology conferences, I would recommend that.
I would also recommend just the Schoology 101 class to just be really familiar with that platform, and then the Google assignments and Schoology class as well, just with how to push out those assignments too.
We'll look into that. I was gonna say we'll look into that for you too, Brian. Some of the tech people too, if you're struggling with that, if you have those kinds of specific questions, Alexandra or Angela, Alexandra Hancock, or Angela Gama, or Matthew Ketchum are amazing with the Schoology resources. I don't, and so that they would be able to answer probably some of those more specific questions that you have. That they could do that without looking at it. I could look at it with you, but it would be a little bit. But that would be my suggestion. I want to send you to the experts as opposed to trying to guess. Does that make sense? I hope. So, okay, so let's do a little kind of look at a little quiz to kind of see where we're at. See what you remember. Try and generate a little bit of retention here. So in the chat box, and then Robin, I'll get to your question. In the chat box, you can just record your response. How do I get on the HMH Ed platform? Yep, you can staff applications, and either from your school website or from the district website will get you there. Excellent. You all get A's for the day. Where can I find content to assign on the platform? Right, either go directly to the module if you want to see what's in there, or you can use that search feature, and there are lots of different ways you can go through and play with it and find out what kinds of resources are available there. Like I said, there are a lot of resources there, and especially a lot in PDF format that you can assign that way. Okay, next, where can I find additional training for HMH curriculum? Yes, email Janine and Christy. We'll be here, and there are training resources, professional learning in the resources piece. Or remember the drop-down menu under your name, the help function. Don't forget that one, because there's lots of things there as well. But yes, we're available. That's what we're doing. And then lastly, where else can I access resources for distance learning? Yeah, please use the Schoology group page. Excellent. Please, and I know that you guys are such a sharing group and willing to offer resources to each other, that provides you an opportunity to share with other people as well. And I'll just I'll keep things. I'll keep trying to keep some folders in there. So if I see that things have been dumped in there, I'll try and make sure that the folders are there to ease identifying where things are. But remember, you can put it in the distance learning file, but you might want to populate the U.S. history folders that are specific to the units that are listed on our course outline that's in existence currently. So that's how that's populated. Excellent. You're the best group we've had all day. Thank you. So we'll go on to then questions. Robin had a question about the Google expeditions. Yeah, Robin, you know, the expeditions, they can be used. There's a viewer kind of a thing. People can use for the different Google expeditions. It's wide open. One of the reasons why we didn't have that, one of the cautions was the issues of Google privacy in terms of having students utilize their own devices on there. And but that would be something that you could explore. It is a viewer thing that you put your phone, your device in, and can kind of look around. But I think you can use it with the functionality of a computer. Honestly, I haven't played with those because I just knew that when we were doing the adoption, that was one of the things that was a problem for our privacy, at least out of our tech area. But yeah, take a look at it. There's a ton of, yeah, maybe something to play with in the following years. We'll do a little more research and talk to our tech people and make sure it's available. And then it's a matter of getting the viewers, which they have the cardboard ones, which are fairly inexpensive, that especially for some of our Title I schools, well, depending on if our schools ever have money again after our quarantine, right? But might be something to be able to get to have a group of. Any other questions about what we have available? Like I said, we're going to continue to populate that distance learning file and give you kind of a rough idea of what you might want to do for at least those first 3 weeks. And then we'll see where things go. We appreciate your questions. And everything. It was an amazing group. Amazing group. Thank you. So
yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, definitely look at this. And thank you, Robin. The Supreme Court cases. And also there's another one of the interactive folders. Oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. That has multiple resources in it, and it's on that first line. So Supreme Court cases at the bottom of the resources, but there's one up above. Interactive. It's an interactive version, but in those files, it's got several like videos, documents, maps, things like that that would that would be good to use too if you're going to try some of those interactive features. Don't overwhelm the students and send them, 5 or 6 interactive things to do a week though, if you haven't been using it. Keep trying to keep it in that comfort level. District email, Susan shared with us, sites are going to be closed for the entire 4th quarter. So we'll be doing more distance learning. But we can also do some webinars that look at specific things and give you some ideas. So we'll be checking in with you too. So yeah, check your email because we'll check in with you all as well. So I see we've been a chatty group today. So we're getting close to the end, and we'll stay on to answer any more questions, but feel free to leave. Our contact information's here. We're happy to help whenever we can, and there will be a video of this available one way or another later on. So thank you all, appreciate it, and have a great day. And keep checking the professional development catalog too for different courses.